He that saith he is in the light, and hateth his brother, is in darkness even unto now.
As part of my research for my comic books, I regularly visit a website dedicated to chronicling various superpowers. Powers range from the awesome, such as flying via jet propulsion, to the terrifying, such as turning into a swarm of spiders, to the absurd, such as transforming into a living spoon. The numerous powers are sorted into a number of categories, as healing powers, combat powers, and elemental manipulation. There's even a category called real powers, which has powers and abilities that are more likely to appear in real life, or are very close to abilities existing in nature. One day, while searching the site, I found the article for a power called demonization, which was the ability to turn others into demons. I sadly reflected that demonization is something which has happened to people in real life. You may laugh derisively at that comment and think, oh, what, you think some infernal being can appear from the underworld and shine some sinister ray at someone, and they'll grow horns and cloven hooves and be transformed into some fiendish monster? No, not at all. I'm not talking about something you might see in some comic book. I'm referring to something more horrible, and which is all too common. The process starts when someone develops a strong and irrational antagonism toward a certain group of people. It could be based on past wrongs committed by members of that group. It could be based on exaggerated and distorted, if not completely made up, history. Or it could be for no real reason at all. People talk about conflicts arising between people of different belief systems, religions, philosophies, political parties, economic systems, etc., races, ethnicities, nationalities, and the like. But while such conflicts have been common, it is foolish, even delusional, to assume those are the only causes of conflict. If there were only one belief system, one race, one nationality, etc., in this world, people would still find reasons to hate. It has been said that you don't need a reason to love someone. You only need a reason to hate someone. This is true, but sadly, some people will find any excuse to hate others. There are people who will hate others for their dwelling places, their diets, their musical tastes, the sports teams they follow, anything. Keep in mind that the most notorious feud in the history of the United States, one that spanned decades and caused so much death and sorrow, was caused by a dispute over a hog. There was even a case in England in which one man fatally injured another because a voice in his head told him to injure people who whistled. Whatever the reason, someone comes to hate anyone belonging to a certain group. They start off making derogatory comments, and then, as their hatred festers, they begin thinking and even vocalizing vicious and destructive comments. Things would be better off if they weren't around. They always ruin everything. The world would be a better place if someone got rid of them. If they allow their hatred to grow and fester, their thinking gradually becomes more warped and vile. They become delusional and begin promoting any lie that advocates their viewpoint, no matter how false or cruel. It gets to the point that they fail to see members of that group as human. Not only can they not show any warmth or decency to them, but they take delight in their suffering. Hearing news about members of that group suffering, whether it's a family losing their house in a disaster or someone getting brutally attacked or murdered, elicits amusement and a self-righteous declaration of, "They got what they deserved," or, "That'll show them," rather than the human sympathy such tragedies should elicit. Eventually, they decide such passive antagonism isn't enough, and they feel justified in committing cruel acts against the targets of their hatred. Threats and calls to eliminate members of that group escalate into violence, beatings, killings, the burning down of occupied houses, torture, dismemberment, rape, depravity. Nothing is considered off-limits, since they no longer see their targets as human. No target is too young or too weak for them to commit atrocities against. These fiends, which were once human, now have the hearts of demons and think only to dehumanize, to kill, and to destroy. They have sacrificed their humanity in dedication to the persecution of those they view as something other than human. Sadly, it doesn't end there. Members of the targeted group develop hatred for members of whichever group commits these atrocities against them. They come to hate and dehumanize the entire group for the actions of a few. This becomes reflected in their thoughts and speech. Things would be better if they weren't here. They always try to ruin everything. The world would be a better place if someone got rid of them. Filled with rage against their oppressors and feeling more and more that any action is justified against them, they too develop the hearts of demons, losing their humanity in the face of those who view them as something less than human. Those who have become demons thus turn others into demons as well. The good news is that this process can be stopped by consciously choosing to retain one's humanity and to see the humanness of others. It can even be reversed by turning from the trodden path of hatred and making a conscious effort to rediscover one's humanity while rejecting delusions and recognizing the humanity of others. One must always choose to retain and recognize humanity. Doing otherwise results only in the condemnation and destruction of oneself. My name is Anastas Bartoszewicz. I am a Hungarian violinist. I had always loved my job, and I had always loved the new people I would meet whenever I would tour with whatever symphonic orchestra I would play with. It wouldn't be very often that I would write my own music. No, I would almost always play someone else's written pieces. Even more infrequent would be for me to publicly play whatever I did write. If I write something, it is not due to my own will. It seems that nothing I do is something that I get to make a choice on anymore. I remember how it all began on one night, how my entire world was plunged into darkness because of one nightmare. In my dream, I was playing a one-man performance. The theater, whichever one it was massive. It could have easily been twice the size of the Royal Opera House in London. The more I think about it, the more it seems impossibly big. I remember there always being only one man in the massive opera house. Sitting in the middle third row, he would always say in his deep, raspy voice,
"Play something."
"Play what?" I would ask, even though it didn't feel like I was saying anything.
"This,"
it would say, matter-of-factly. The same sheet music would always appear on my stand. It was the most difficult sheet music I'd ever seen, yet I would always sight-read it perfectly. Whenever I'd play it, the lights would all go down except for one over me and one over him. Despite having an impossibly bright light shining on him, I could still barely make out his features. The man seemed old. When I'd finish, I'd look up to make eye contact with the man. I knew it was no man. Its face was pale and dead-looking. Where there wasn't rot, I could see the thousands of wrinkles brought on by many millennia of existence. Its eyes were nothing but empty sockets, save for the bluish-green small round orbs in the center that emanated a hypnotic, sedative light. I would always wake up in a sweat after that. The dream and all of its horrible images would haunt my mind for days on end. Just as I would forget about the dream, I would have it again that same night. It got to the point where I would refuse to sleep. The smallest crackles of the floorboards would send me shooting straight up out of bed and turning the light on. There was a change in me, too. Obviously from sleep deprivation, but my mood was unusually sullen. Almost everyone I would see, let alone care for, I'd see as dead, rotting heaps of flesh. These visions brought me to the brink of suicide several times. Thinking back, I shouldn't have listened to the psychiatrist. That maggot-filled, walking piece of shit, as the Americans say. The Prozac never helped. I don't even know why that was the only drug prescribed to me. The biggest change by far, though, was the fact that no matter what the music was, how new it was, or how difficult to play it was, I could always sight read it. After about a year, I stopped having the dreams. Life went back to normal, and people looked normal again, too. I shrugged everything off as an effect of sleep deprivation. I could still sight read perfectly, though. However, now I took it as a blessing. How wrong I was. One day, a package came in the mail. It was not marked, and the packaging was black. It was slender, but tall and long. It was approximately the size of a music folder. My suspicions were affirmed as I opened the package. Intrigued and a little happy about getting new music, I opened the folder, and all happiness that I had held flushed out of me as fast as the color from my face did. Inside the music folder was the exact same sheet music that appeared in my dream. I burned the music. By now, I knew that I had sold my soul in that damn dream, whether I had intended to or not. That night, I started having the recurring dream again. My career skyrocketed, but I went through withdrawals from reality nonetheless. I would lock myself in my room and write music. The demon's voice would resound in my head day in and day out.
Write something.
It would say.
Play it.
It would demand as soon as I would finish writing. By then I had basically dropped off the face of the planet. People knew where I was, but never did they dare to interrupt my progress. Weeks later, after accumulating self-written music to the point that wherever I stepped there would be a harsh crunch of paper under my foot, the voice just wanted to hear music.
Play something.
It would demand ravenously, and I would mix and match sheet music to please its hunger. The torture never stopped. For the longest time, I would mix music to the point where I had exhausted all my resources. Only then was I allowed out of the demon's powerful grip. I tried running away, only sleeping where my body dropped. I'd stay only one night in each place. I went from friends' houses to relatively high-end hotels, to the dingiest motels, to squatting in vacant houses, to sleeping on the streets. Every night, the shadows would creep up on me, slowly, like a predator's hands reaching out to its dormant prey without wanting to wake it. My dreams would consist of the demon sitting alone in the opera house, or a new recurring dream in which I was completely paralyzed with him watching over me for what seemed like hours. Each morning that I would wake up showed me a new level of destruction around me. The voices would beckon for me to return home. Sometimes they were sad, other times seductively optimistic, but most of the time they were filled with a scalding rage. For the longest time, I kept to the back alleyways of buildings, where the only ones to see me were the dregs of society and the worthless strays. I would go weeks without eating, to the point of near starvation, as to not be around other people. Solitude was part of my life for a very long time. At one point, the voices were constant and furious.
Come back. Play something. Come back. Play something. Come back now. Play something now.
Would be all I would hear 24 hours a day. I had to go back. I had to play something to appease the demon's fury. It was the only thing I could do. So I went back to my apartment. With new resources to last me months, I went to work on writing. Now I had more music to mix and match so I could spend more time in solitude. Spend more time lulling the beast. Keeping myself from the rest of the world, I admitted defeat. I gave up on saving myself.